This message is produced by truthfromgod.com, which is one of hundreds of messages that can be read, heard, and watched at truthfromgod.com.
The Gentile Gibberish comes from the contemptible way in which the Old Testament Hebrew word gowy and the New Testament Greek word ethnos are translated into English in both the Catholic and Protestant authorized versions of the Bible. This message will clearly show from the ancient scriptural texts that neither gowy or ethnos are racial words, and they never meant someone who is not a Jew. As is pointed out in the message, Christianity's Achilles heel, Catholicism and Protestantism are two sides of the same coin. They are two branches of the same tree, Christianity. The message, Bible 101, enumerates some of the perverse dogmas making up this man-made religion that over 1/3 of the world's population embraces. The name of the only true God, the God of the Scriptures, Yahweh, will be used in this message, and more about this name is covered extensively in the message, Three Holy Names. The two evil sisters, Catholicism and Protestantism, have inundated the world with their Gentile garbage, and their authorized versions of the Bible have provided the necessary corruption for this Christian chicanery. Their whole Gentile gibberish is unscriptural, and a brief look at the ancient text will prove this point. Now, the English word Gentile in the Old Testament is translated from the Hebrew word goy, which is used 558 times in the ancient text, and yet is only rendered Gentile 30 times in the King James Version of the Bible. The Hebrew word goy is first used in Genesis 10:5. By these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, every one after his tongue, after their families, in their nations. This verse is a good example of their word duplicity. In it, goy is used 2 times and is translated 2 different ways, but who would have known it from their authorized versions of the Bible? Replacing the 2 different English words in this verse with the original Hebrew word goy will clean up this deceptive translation. By these were the isles of the goy divided in their lands, every one after his tongue, after their families, in their goy. In a corrected English translation, the verse reads, by these were the isles of the nations divided in their lands, every one after his tongue, after their families, in their nations. Genesis 10:5. The King Jimmy Boys translated the word goy as Gentile only 5% of the time, a grand total of 30 times. Therefore, this English word, Gentile, is almost never used in the Old Testament. The most frequent and accurate way to translate goy is nation, which is done 374 times, even in their authorized versions. Saying that the Hebrew word goy has no racial connotation will make all Christianity scream to high heaven while they ignore the scripture where Yahweh told Isaac about Rebekah. And Yahweh said unto her, 2 nations, gowy, are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels, and the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. Genesis 25:23. Even the Catholic and Protestant authorized versions are not going to say that Rebekah was carrying 2 Gentiles or 2 races in her womb. Romans 9:10 says that Rebekah conceived by one, even by our father Isaac. The children in Rebekah's womb were not Gentiles, non-Jews, or 2 races of people. Doesn't it say Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau? Hebrews 11:20. Esau and Jacob were one race, and each would be the founder of a nation. The racial connotation of Gentile is a contrived concoction of Christianism. Through history, there have been many nations, and none of them have ever been made up of one single race of people. According to Genesis 38:2 and Exodus 12:38, this racial diversity was true for ancient Israel, and this is still true for every nation today. Look around. There are German Jews, white Africans, black Swedes, Asian Russians, and Latino Americans. The Old Testament Hebrew word goy identifies a geographical territory, and the people residing within those borders have that nationality. So, Gentile in the Old Testament, the same in the New Testament. The English word Gentile appears 93 times in the authorized version of the New Testament, and is translated from the Greek word ethnos, which is used 164 times in the ancient text. But is the Greek word ethnos equivalent to the Hebrew word goy? The answer can easily be found by comparing New Testament verses with the Old Testament ones that they are quoting. The following are a few comparative examples. Behold my servant, whom I have chosen, my beloved, in whom my soul is well pleased. I will put my spirit upon him, and he shall show judgment unto the Gentiles, ethnos, Matthew 12:18. And behold my servant, whom I uphold, mine elect, in whom my soul delighteth. I have put my spirit upon him. He shall bring forth judgment to the Gentiles, goy, Isaiah 42:1. Then a light to lighten the Gentiles, ethnos, and the glory of thy people Israel, Luke 2:32. And he said, It is a light thing that thou shouldest be my servant, to raise up the tribes of Jacob, and to restore the preserved of Israel. I will also give thee for a light to the Gentiles, goy, that thou mayest be my salvation unto the end of the earth. Isaiah 49:6. Also, and again, Isaiah saith, There shall be a root of Jesse, and he that shall rise to reign over the Gentiles, ethnos, in him shall the Gentiles, ethnos, trust, Romans 15:12. And in that day there shall be a root of Jesse, which shall stand for an ensign of the people. To it shall the Gentiles, gowy, seek, and his rest shall be glorious. Isaiah 11:10. From these verses, it is apparent that the Hebrew word goy and the Greek word ethnos are equivalent. An even greater insight about the meaning of the Greek word ethnos is seen from its transliteration, which is the root of the English word ethics, ethical, and ethnicity. These English words are true to their origin and have no racial meaning or connotation. Again, Christianity will raise a howl to the heights of heaven about this, since one of its major tenets is that the word Gentile is racial. They constantly parrot the lie that people are either a Jew or a Gentile, and that Jews are the children of God, his chosen people Israel, while the Gentiles are the children of the devil, have to accept Jesus so that God will adopt them and not burn them in hell forever and ever. This is all gibberish, a complete concoction, and has no scriptural basis. The message is Jews ain't Israel. Who is Israel? The adoption myth, the hell hoax, heaven humbug, and the Jew delusion expose Christianism's Mount Everest of lies. Who has ever heard of a doctor, lawyer, or politician ever being charged with an ethics violation because of their race? Saying that someone is not ethical has nothing to do with their race either. No matter how hard the perverters of all truth try, ethnicity is not a racial word. My ethnicity is that of one who lives in the foothills of the southern Appalachians. Our social customs are very different from people living in the northeast seacoast. Our music, art, speech, attire, and lifestyle is different. We eat grits instead of cream of wheat. We were the origin of country music. We say, you all, and talk slower. This is common for people living in different parts of the United States, and race is not the factor. Ethnicity are the things that pertain to our area, a region, or a nation in which one resides. They are social norms, customs, and conventions for an area, and have no racial meaning or connotations. There are racial words in the scriptures, and the main one is covered in the message, the Genesis factor. But the Hebrew word goy and the Greek word ethnos are not racial words. Christianism has spun an elaborate theological dogma about the Gentiles, which glorify the Jew and degrade everyone else. It is appropriate that the real name for such a depraved man-made religion is Judeo-Christianity, which is exposed in the message, the Judeo-Christian con job. Christianism boldly confesses that its roots are Jewish. Such statements indicate how blatantly unscriptural Christianity has become, and they're straight from the abyss. With all its Judaized beliefs, it's no wonder that Christianity gives the Jew preeminence and dumps everyone else onto a garbage pile of beastly creatures whose father is the devil, and they are destined to an eternal hell. None of Christianity's teachings, doctrines, edicts, enunciations, and innuendos about Gentiles are scriptural. None. Don't get swept away by their endless flood of perversion, but understand that no one, according to the scriptures, is racially a Gentile, a lesser being, a child of the devil, bound for an eternal hell. Christianity's endeavor to degrade 99% of all humans is an attempt to make them fearful of a fiery end, and through such a corrupt concoction gains mystical power over them. A brave new world subject to the auspices of the church. And now you know the truth about the Gentile gibberish.
This message is produced by truthfromgod.com, which is one of hundreds of messages that can be read, heard, and watched at truthfromgod.com.